Hello to the pessimistic, optimistic, and everyone in between. My name is Connor Philippi, and welcome back to the Minnesotan Sports Podcast. And another week has come and gone. There were a couple games that I didn't expect to go a certain way, and they did, but that's pretty much every week. And as we've established, there's been plenty of teams this year that I've been incredibly wrong about. So that's part of what we're going to go over today. But we're going to go over the recap of all the games from Week 11, talk about what went right and wrong for the teams, and just how these teams are looking after each week. Last week, I decided to do a ranking, go through the power rankings, but then I realized those aren't going to change quite as much week to week. I'd rather just go over the games, give my opinions on them, and but let me know in the comments. Would you rather have me do a weekly power rankings video, or would you rather me actually recap all the games? So anyway, let's get into this slew of games, and I'm not going to be talking about the Vikings-Broncos game here because I made a whole raw reaction to that as soon as the game ended. So make sure you check that out. It's the video I just posted before this one that you're seeing now. But let's get into some of these. Bengals-Ravens. We're starting to kind of see the Ravens start to trend upward offensively. They started out kind of streaky throughout the season. They had a little bit of a slump of scoring points. Lamar Jackson was struggling a little bit, and they were relying a little bit too much on the run. But then they've kind of started to figure it out these last few weeks, and the defense has also been pretty good. Joe Burrow left with a wrist injury, so I think the game would have been a little bit better than it ended up being. I still think the Ravens would have won it because the Bengals were definitely struggling to score points even before Burrow left. But yeah, at this point the Bengals season is over. Like they're now 5-5. I don't know how good of a chance they would even have if Joe was still in to get back in and climb into this playoff race. They might have still had a chance, but now that he's out, it's completely over for them. But Ravens also are looking better. Beckham had a great game. Steelers Browns. Browns win that one 13-10, and this was just your classic run and gun, or not run and gun, tough running type game. The running back stole the show. Warren for the Steelers actually only had 36 less yards than DTR had passing. DTR had 165 yards and an interception. Warren had 129 yards, and it's just insane. It was a run-heavy game, and it proved that defenses can still be successful. Having a solid defense can still make you successful in the NFL. It's just, is that going to be sustainable against some of these high-powered offenses? Because we've seen the Browns and Steelers dominate these teams that don't necessarily have like high-caliber offenses, but is Patrick Mahomes going to be stifled enough against these defenses? Because if the Chiefs are in a playoff game against either of these two teams and they score even 14 to 17 points, these two teams aren't going to be able to make up for that. So that's my concern with these two. But still, very impressive defenses. The lines are insane, and it led to kind of a boring but also entertaining in some ways. It really depends on what kind of game you like to consume. But a 13-10 win after a last-second field goal for the Browns. Bears-Lions, this was another really good game, and the Lions did what good teams need to do. You go into it having a rough game. Jared Goff coming in, throws 3 interceptions, 2 of those being in the first quarter, I believe, and getting into a little bit of a hole, end up being down by 2 scores late in the game, and you find a way to win. And that's exactly what you have to do. When your quarterback is in trouble, you got to pick him up, find a way to still win. The Bears honestly didn't put up that bad of an offensive performance. Justin Fields ran for over 100 yards, but at the end of it, the Lions were just too much for the Bears. And that's the mark of a true, division champion type team. And the Lions will win the division now for sure with the Vikings losing to the Broncos, unless we can somehow beat the Lions twice, which won't happen. But it's great to see the Lions continuing to perform well, and now they get a Thanksgiving matchup coming up on Thursday against the Packers, which we're about to talk about, because the Packers defeat the Chargers 23-20. I was holding out hope that maybe the Chargers could pick up their season just a little bit, and because I wanted to kind of pick up the pieces of my pride at least a little bit, just enough for me to feel like I wasn't a complete failure in my predictions. But of course, at this point, if you lose to the 2023 Green Bay Packers, that pretty much seals it for you that you're not a team that's worth, rooting for, contending for the playoffs. The Chargers, after I said so boldly to start off this season that they would be the second seed in the AFC, that they'd do the improbable and beat out the Chiefs and win the division. I could not have been more wrong. Probably the most wrong I've ever been about a NFL prediction in at least in recent memory for me. And so, I mean, I don't know what else Herbert can do. Johnson drops a wide open pass to potentially win the game. Jordan Love actually puts up a good performance. I like him having performances like that every now and then because I want the Packers to just struggle with a mediocre QB for years and waffle around about what they want to do with him, because that's what the Vikings have had to deal with for years. But yeah, tough for the Chargers. It's another year where they get themselves in close games and can't win them. Similar to what the Vikings have been going through this year as well. Raiders and Dolphins. The Dolphins are another one of those teams where they're showing what makes them such a good complete team, because when you struggle offensively in games and your defense can pick you up, even though they're not always necessarily the main focus of your team and the main reason why you usually win games, if that other part of your team can find ways to win when your offense is struggling, that's huge. And the Dolphins did that. Tua threw for 325, 2 TDs and 1 interception. But for some reason, I don't know what. If you look at this score and you didn't actually watch the game, you'd be like, those two things don't add up. But just some struggles in the red zone, that interception kept it close, and the defense did not allow a point in the second half for the Raiders. So very impressive performance by the Dolphins, showing how complete they are. The only concern is the Dolphins haven't really played any super impressive teams. The only 3 good teams they played, they've lost to all of them by multiple scores. Well, the Chiefs game was only 7 points, but I need to see them beat a genuinely really good team, and then that will be the final say of whether or not I think they're legit or not. But it's certainly impressive to see both sides of the ball playing well for them. Giants and Commanders. This was an interesting game, to say the least, where the Giants finally got the job done and showed a good offensive performance. Saquon rushing for 83 yards. The defense was a big factor for the Giants in this one. Sam Howell threw 3 interceptions in this game. Just a really rough game, all in all, for the Commanders. The Giants showing some life, and Giants fans probably wishing they aren't winning games right now so that they can get a better draft pick. But you got to keep that positive energy going, because we know how important that is to be one of the worst teams in the league and still know that you can find ways to win. Speaking of not finding ways to win, Cowboys destroy the Panthers 33-10 in this one. So much of a domination on the defensive side of the Cowboys that Prescott threw for less than 200 yards, and they still won by 23 points. Prescott with 189 and 2 TDs. Didn't even need to play that well to win this game. Pollard for 61 yards. Thielen led the Panthers with 74 yards. I mean, this Panthers team is not good, and we've known that for a while. But the Cowboys doing what they do best and beating up on the bad teams before they are gonna fail to compete against the good teams in the future, just like they always do. Titans and Jags. Jags win this one 34-14. Kind of refreshing to see the Jags win a game by a really wide margin. They've been getting into close ones. They've been streaky at times this season. They're another team, though, as Lawrence throws for 262 and 2 TDs. Ridley also having a very good game with 103 and 2 TDs. But the Jags are another one of those teams where it's like, who have they really played? I don't believe they've even won a game against a team that's in top 5 of their conference. And so it makes me a little bit nervous for them going into the postseason, because it's just another one of those teams where it's like, who have they played? But we're going to have to see. They've got some tests coming up in the next part of the season, so we'll see what happens there. Cardinals and Texans. I mean, Stroud threw three interceptions, but he ended up finishing strong, or starting strong, 0 points for the Texans in the second half. But Stroud really made up for the interceptions he threw with 336 yards, 2 TDs, including a really good throw to Tank Dell for a diving touchdown. Stroud, still there's going to be those kinks, but Stroud still vying for Rookie of the Year as the Texans improved to 6-4, something we never would have thought going into this season. 49ers, Buccaneers. This was a game that kind of solidified that the Bucs, while they put up a good fight, they're not a contender, and they are not going to be in the playoffs this year. There was a lot of games this week that solidified that the Vikings were going to be the 7th seed no matter what. Even if they struggle in these next few weeks, I don't see any team beating them out unless the Vikings pretty much lose out. But Bucs did not play well today as the 49ers defense once again shut down another offense with a 27-14 win. Purdy, what a day for him. 333 and 3 touchdowns. He likes the number 3, I guess, this week. But really, the 49ers defense, I've said this now ever since they got Chase Young, I don't think they're going to lose a game the rest of the regular season, and they're going to be really tough to beat in the playoffs as well. This team is now all around just so great. Purdy got out of his slump. McCaffrey rushes for 78. Just a good all-around performance once again for the San Francisco 49ers. 2 more left here. Well, 3 more technically. Jets and Bills. Bills destroy the Jets. The Bills have a game like this every now and then where, even this season where they're under so much scrutiny, they're struggling so much, they always find a way to get these games late in the season where it's like, still got to believe in them a little bit. And they are 6-5 still, and we're going to see what they're made of throughout the rest of the season. If they are going to have to prove that they're legitimate playoff contenders in order to even make it to the playoffs this year, because now they're facing one of the more difficult last 6 games? Yeah, 6 games left of the season for them, and almost all of them are going to be very tough. So if they make it out of that with enough wins to make it to the playoffs, they prove that they're still that team. And if they're not that team, they're going to lose a good majority of these games, and we'll find that out in the coming weeks. But the Jets, I think with this loss, I just don't see Aaron Rodgers coming back now. Rodgers said he'd be ready by week 16. But if the Jets are out of the playoffs at that point, why would you risk coming back? I just don't see it. But good all-around performance for the Bills. And then finally, the Rams beat the Seahawks 17-16. I got the upset of the week right, ladies and gentlemen. Every week I pick one upset, and I said what better team to pick for an upset than the Rams, who already upset them week 1 and didn't think it was possible, but they did it yet again. Jason Myers lost that game at the very end, missing a game-winning field goal. But still, you got to score more than 20 against a team like the Rams. The Seahawks continue to be very streaky this season, and it's just really tough to feel like the Seahawks are going to be a serious force to be reckoned with in the NFC. There's a very clear cutoff after the top 3 teams in the NFC for me, whereas in the AFC, it's really a really good field. But the NFC, it's kind of just like you got the Lions, 49ers, Eagles, and that's cut off there. As always, I record this on Monday evening, so now let's send it over to future Connor on the sideline as he reports from the end of the Monday Night Football game. What do you got, Connor? Yes, thank you, past Connor. As you can see, we are watching the final seconds of the game tick off here as the Chiefs had an opportunity. They were down by 4 points, and Valdez-Scantling dropped the potential game-winning touchdown pass. He would have been gone for the touchdown. Of course, the Eagles would have had like a minute and a half left to go still. So, who knows what could have happened. But, yeah, 4th and 25, the Chiefs had a chance to still get that first down and keep it going. But the Eagles kneeling it down now. So the Eagles will improve to 9-1. The Chiefs will fall to 7-3. They still retain the number 1 seed, if I'm not mistaken, because they have the conference. They've won more or have a better conference record of teams they play within the conference. I really explained that badly. But yeah, in this game, it really felt to me like both teams just decided, okay, we are going to cover their best guy like a blanket, and that's kind of what happened. Kelce was shut down for most of the game. Devontae and AJ Brown both, struggled. Devontae Smith had some nice deep throws in this one, but AJ Brown was locked up for the majority of the game. Even had to throw to Julio Jones at one point because they had no other choice. But at the end of it, I think the weather was also definitely a factor. But the team with the better running game was going to win this one, and I really thought it was going to be Pacheco and the Chiefs. But instead, Swift was fantastic in this game. The Chiefs, there's a lot of things that didn't look quite like the Chiefs today, and sometimes that'll happen when you got Monday night game. A tough defense you're going up against in these weather conditions. It was kind of just a weird game, and I think we kind of expected this game to be close. But we thought it would be a little more of a shootout. But, it's been the story is that obviously we knew the Eagles' defense was really good, but the Chiefs' defense has really been a key factor towards the Chiefs' success this year. So I guess we should have expected it to be more of a defensive game than offensive. But yeah, 21-17 win for the Eagles as Jason Kelce gets his very first win against the Chiefs with Travis Kelce on the team. Travis Kelce's going to have to shake that one off. And as the Chiefs fall to 7-3, still in command, still have everything with their own destiny, or they control their own destiny in the AFC. So that does it for this game, and back to you at the studio. Thanks, Future Connor, and that wraps it up for this video. Please let me know in the comments what you think about these games, my recap. Let me know if there's any specific team that you feel like you learned a whole lot about this week, or any team that you're going to really have a close eye on going forward as we get to the final 6 games, or for some of these teams, 7 games left of the regular season. I think there's a couple on my mind where these next few weeks are going to be really important. But thank you so much for watching this video. If you don't watch any of my other videos up to Thanksgiving, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. But I also have a fun Thanksgiving-themed video coming up, as well as my predictions for all of the Thanksgiving games and all of Week 12. So stay tuned for all those videos, but have a safe, happy Thanksgiving as well, and I will see you on the flip side.